We live in what's got to be the noisiest era in human history. And I'm not just talking about like cars and construction. I'm talking about mental noise. The constant pings, that endless scroll, the feeling that you have to be reachable 24/7. In this crazy hyper-connected world, it's so easy to start confusing being alone with being lonely. But what if I told you they're actually polar opposites? Yeah, seriously. Let's break that down right now. Okay, so think of it this way. Over here, you've got loneliness. That's that painful, nagging feeling of isolation, a feeling unwanted. But then over here, you've got solitude, and that's totally different. Solitude is a choice. It's this positive, constructive time where you actually engage with yourself. See, it's not about running away from the world. It's really about finding a way to reconnect with you. All right, let's dive into the first and, honestly, one of the most profound benefits. We're talking about how solitude can literally unlock your brain's creative potential. Just think about it for a second. When was the last time you had one of those aha moments? A really great idea just pops into your head. I'm willing to bet it wasn't during some packed meeting or while you were doom scrolling online, right? It was probably when you were alone, maybe in the shower or driving, one of those quiet in-between moments. And guess what? There's a really powerful scientific reason for that. See, when we're just constantly bombarded with stuff, I'm talking emails, conversations, videos, you name it, our brain gets stuck in what you could call reaction mode. It's just reacting. It's processing all this incoming data, and it literally has no space left over to do its deeper, more interesting work. And here's the cool science behind it. When you finally get some quiet time and you just let your mind wander, you activate something called the default mode network. Just think of it as your brain's built-in imagination network. It's the part that kicks in and starts connecting old ideas, consolidating memories, and, connecting those dots that it just couldn't see when it was so busy reacting to all that noise. So the main takeaway here, solitude is what gives your brain the space it needs to actually think. Okay, so we know it can unlock our creativity, but what can solitude do for our emotional health? Well, it turns out it's kind of like hitting a reset button. I like to call it the great decompression. Think about it. Every single day, we're basically performing. We're managing our facial expressions, carefully choosing our words, just trying to be, socially acceptable. And every single one of those interactions, no matter how tiny, drains a little bit of our emotional energy. And by the end of the day, man, it's just absolutely exhausting. This idea of life as a stage is just perfect here. If all our daily interactions are the on-stage performance, then solitude, well, that's the backstage area. It's the one place where you can finally drop the act, take off the costume, and just stop performing for an audience. So how do you actually do this decompression thing? It's really just a simple 3-step process. First, you have to consciously step away from all the external noise. Second, you give yourself permission to stop performing for everybody. And third, you allow yourself the space to finally process all those emotions you had to kind of shove down during the day. Because you can't really deal with what you don't let yourself feel, right? And you can't feel it until the noise finally stops. All right, this next part is fascinating, and it sounds like a total contradiction. I call it the solitude paradox. It's this wild idea that spending more time away from people can actually improve your connection, not just with yourself, but with them too. I mean, it's so easy to become a chameleon, right? In a crowd, you just start reflecting the opinions and values of everyone around you. But solitude asks a really fundamental question. Who are you when nobody is watching? When no one is there to tell you who you should be? It's that silence that finally lets you hear your own inner voice, separate from all that outside noise. Okay, so connecting with yourself, that makes sense. But here's the really paradoxical part. How on earth does spending more time alone lead to better relationships with other people? I mean, it sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? Well, here's the simple, powerful truth behind it all. You stop using people as a distraction from yourself. See, if you're uncomfortable being alone, you'll seek out other people, not for a real connection, but just to distract you from yourself. You end up using them to try and fill some kind of void. And this is where the big shift happens. Solitude helps you move from relationships based on need to relationships based on choice. When you're actually okay on your own, you stop needing other people to validate you or make you feel whole. And that's when you can show up to your relationships as a complete person, offering a genuine connection, instead of just looking for someone to fill an empty space. And what does all this lead to? A huge boost in confidence. Seriously, when you spend time alone, you're proving to yourself that you can handle it.
that you can soothe yourself, that you can entertain yourself, and that you can trust your own judgment without needing to text 10 friends for their opinion first. That kind of self-reliance, that's what true confidence is all about.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the why solitude is so powerful. Now let's get to the how. It's time to take this from theory and put it into practice with a super simple, actionable challenge. But first, let's get one thing straight. This is not about becoming a hermit or running away from your life. Not at all. The whole point of solitude is to purposefully recharge so that you can go back out into the world as a better, more centered version of yourself. So here it is. The challenge is simple. Find just 20 minutes a day, and during those 20 minutes, no phone, no podcasts, no music, nothing. Just you and your own thoughts. And look, it might feel a little weird or even boring at first, and that is totally okay. In fact, that's kind of the point. That's part of the process. So, I'll leave you with one final question to think about. When you finally turn down the volume on the rest of the world and just allow yourself to be, what do you think you'll discover in the silence?